I am very excited for two reasons. One thing is I got my first question from someone, which I'm very excited about. And the other is that I'm upgrading my super high-tech videoing equipment. So let me show you what I was using. It worked great. I was using this parchment paper and taking this rubber band and putting my phone in, and I'd stick it in a vase filled with rice to hold it upright. So now I actually have a little tripod. So we'll see how it goes. But getting back to that first question, a good friend of mine asked a great question on where to start in the Bible. And as we all know, that can be tricky. The Bible can be difficult to read for many reasons. One of the reasons is it's composed of 66 different books, and the culture is very different from our culture. The language can be different. So there's a lot of reasons here. So I wanted to kind of go over a few things about where to start in the Bible if you're interested in reading. So first of all, I was curious to see what kind of Bibles were out there for new Christians, new believers, or people that are just interested. And there's some great options out there. Did anybody else see the camera just shake? Okay. So one of them that I actually really liked, I will put in the comments the name of it because all of a sudden I can't think of it. I think it's actually called the Starting Place Study Bible. And it looked like it had great, so a study Bible in general has, let me just show you one, has the text on the top and then notes on the bottom to help you learn more about the text. And in the Starter Bible, it looked like they had a lot more notes. It had great things like how to choose a church, where to begin. It had some context clues to the culture. My Bible that I read is an NIV. I like that translation. There's some really good other translations out there. For example, the New King James is another good one, and now I'm forgetting the third one. I'll put it down in the comments. But so just to say, there's a lot of different things. What I would not suggest when you start reading a Bible is to do the God's gonna talk to me. I'm gonna close my eyes, open to this page, point to this verse, and that's what God says to me. This can be very dangerous. A friend of mine in high school, one of his favorite verses was a great example of taking a verse out of context. It was Ecclesiastes 10:19. And it says, the end of it says, money is the answer for everything. And if you just take that verse out of context, you can say a lot with it, right? But basically it's in the midst of a lot of talk about foolishness and wisdom. And so when I say taking things out of context, it's important to read around the verses. A lot of times in the back of your Bible, it will have things you can look up, like say you want to look up something on marriage or anger, and it will give you verses. But I would encourage you, don't just read that one verse. Look and read around that. The Bible was never really meant to just be read and taught as lessons. When Jesus was on the earth, he had his 12 disciples, and it was very much like a mentorship relationship. Think of like if you were in a job and you're doing like some type of mentorship program where people were living their lives together and talking about it. And so what I would say is, if you're interested in learning more about the Bible, the best thing to do is get involved in a church and to get involved in a small group Bible study, whether it's a women's Bible study, men's, whether it's whatever, but a small group of people you can meet with and study together and ask questions, because as much as you can learn during a sermon on a Sunday, it's not a good atmosphere, typical churches, for question and answer. So, and that's what I want this to be too. So ask questions here. But the best place is, when you want to learn more, is to get involved in a church and to either get a mentor, somebody that can work not work, but live alongside you and encourage you and teach you, and also small group. On your own, when you're starting, most people recommend you start in John. And one of the links I'm going to put down into the comments is I found a video where a man is explaining, like in 18 minutes, he explains each book of the Bible and kind of a quick summary of what it's about, which was pretty interesting. But typically, people want to know about Jesus, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are really where the story of Jesus is told. And most of it overlaps, although not all of it. And I heard a great description. It's written by 4 different people. And so any of us, if we were to describe a similar event, would describe it a little differently. And I've heard it said like, imagine somebody describing a cow from an aerial view and a cow from underneath. You would have mostly the same, but you'd have some distinctions. And so that's what you see in these Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Gospels. But God says that if you want to know him, that Jesus is the image and of him. And so when you read about Jesus, you read about and you get to know what God's character is like. And even if you don't understand all the stories, you can see, how did Jesus interact with people? How was he living? And one of the things you'll notice about Jesus is he was constantly meeting with people who were, I'm trying to think of the word, but basically, not the people that were kind of outcasts in the society and stuff like that. And he was constantly just loving people, all people. And so when you start John, if you're interested in starting to read more about the Bible, start in John. It would be my recommendation. And just a quick little caveat, when you start in John, there's one little thing that's confusing. The first verse, instead of saying Jesus, they call him by a different name, and they call him Word, capital W-O-R-D. And it says, in the beginning was the Word. And if you want, just replace every time you see that, the Word with Jesus. In the beginning was Jesus. Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. And we know that they're talking about Jesus is because a little bit later on it says, my dog is starting to bark, is that it says he came into the world. And I can't even find it right now. Anyway, it's going to drive me crazy. Verse 14, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. So Jesus became flesh. So as you're reading through John, that's a little part that can be a little confusing. So in the beginning was Jesus, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. And so that's just a little hint to start out with. So I have, for you listening, I have a job for you. I need 2 things from you. I need any good jokes, if you know them, clean jokes. And I also need questions. What do you have questions about? Topics about God or the Bible, or just maybe something you've read that you didn't understand. And in my last video, I had mentioned that I was starting to run out of good jokes. My husband said, starting to run out? And I said, yeah, I know. They've been pretty bad. The other thing I'm going to have down in the comments is, this might sound silly, but there is this great free resource called Adventures in Odyssey. It's made for kids. It's audio dramas, and a friend of mine gave it to me when I was first going through a lot of my health issues, and I wasn't able to read or watch much. And I thought, oh, this is for kids. But to be honest, it's a great place to learn more about God. I actually learned a lot through it. So I'll put that in the comments as well. All right. Here's your joke. And this is sad because this is the best one I could find. What do you give a dog with a fever? Mustard. It's the best thing for a hot dog.